Hello, welcome to Good Questions, Good Answer. Today we have another interesting question from our audience and Venerable Sander joining us to help solve the problem.
Yeah, hello. Yeah. Thank you for having me on the program again.
Well, the question we have from the audience today is, as it is many times, many days, we all have to go to bed, but we still could not find scientific result answering why do we sleep. So this time we have the questions, why do we sleep and how can we have a good sleep? Venerable Sander, can you help solve out this problem?
I've heard that a number of people are having problems sleeping because of all the things that are going on right now, whether it's in terms of health, the health, the crisis that we have right now, the healthcare
Right.
crisis, and also the political issues that are going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
So people are worried about that, and they may have other reasons why they are not sleeping well.
Mm.
So let us first talk about what science says about sleeping, what is
Okay.
generally known about sleeping,
I like
and then
that.
we
That's a
can
good
talk about
approach.
it from a Buddhist point of view.
Okay, let's go.
And so the definition which is given, which is kind of summarized from scientific research as given on Wikipedia, is that sleep is a naturally recurring state of mind and body
Mm-hmm.
characterized by altered consciousness. So that is the definition. But the strangest thing is that despite all the advances in science that we have experienced for the last 200 years, scientists still don't know why we sleep.
Oh,
So at first, when I heard this, I thought, well, it's common sense, isn't it?
yeah.
We all know why we sleep. We get tired, so we sleep.
Yeah, I
But
think
when
so
you think
too.
about it, why do we just not lie down? Why do we actually have to close our eyes and have this strange state of mind for many hours? They don't actually know why, but they have a theory that it is because we organize our brain during that time, causing
Mm.
our brain to have the proper plasticity or the proper flexibility, as you could say in layman's words.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they compare this with defragmenting a hard disk.
Memories, but one is diffract, it go faster. So I think it's work the same way. When we sleep, when we wake up, we more refreshed and do things much better.
Right, right. Yeah, they actually have a theory that we get rid of all our excess memories and excess information and just keep the things we really need,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of interesting because, very often we forget things. So that means maybe we are not sleeping well, or what is the reason? It may be some relation to that as well.
Mm. Okay.
Scientists also have a term called sleep debt. Sleep debt is the fact that when you are longer awake, you feel you need more sleep more and more.
Yeah, you need to
And there's
maintain the
also
balance,
a
huh?
term called circadian rhythm, which is the fact that we tend to sleep in the same hour,
Mm-hmm.
similar hours every day.
That's remind me though, because whenever I go to bed at night, I always wake up at the same time. Whenever I wake up every
Right,
day,
exactly.
so
So
that's
there's
kind of
like
like
a
that.
little clock in your body that is what they call a circadian rhythm.
Mm.
So that's why people who work in shifts, they need to take very good care of their health because it
Okay.
kind of goes against the nature of our body and mind.
All right.
So then there is also a lot of research about the effects when we sleep too little.
Mm.
And they have discovered that that may lead to depression, obesity, being
Mm-hmm.
too fat,
Mm.
having a poor immune system, and other health problems. So
Mm.
if you are finding that you are often ill, you might have to make sure you have more rest or
Yes.
you sleep more deeply. And we
Mm.
will talk about that more in a moment.
Okay.
Just to summarize that sleeping experts say that you should sleep about 7 to 8 hours per day, but of
Wow.
course per night. And of course, many people they don't actually get that number of hours.
No, I don't.
But it's also interesting that people who sleep too much, I mean, it can cause you to have problems in your health if you sleep too much. There's
That's
also some
okay.
research about taking a nap in the afternoon, and that's good for your health, but the jury isn't out on that one yet. It's just some theory.
Oh, I love to have that, but at this time of day, probably not. Well, one thing that is still quite wonder to me, what you mentioned earlier, that sleeping less, that makes sense, that make our health is negative. It's negative to our health. But if sleeping a lot is also negative to our health, that's something I don't really know.
I don't know exactly why. We have to ask a scientist. Anyway, there is
Yeah.
actually, similarly to science in Buddhism, a lot of criticism to people who sleep too much. In Buddhism, we tend to think of sleep as something rather negative.
Well, so in other words, we just have to maintain our balance, not too much, not too less. So that way
Right,
we can keep our
exactly.
health in check.
But
Okay.
most of the time, the Buddhism will say that usually something that we need to do in moderation, knowing the right measure, and also we shouldn't grow attached to it.
No,
So
we
the
don't.
Buddha he also teaches a lot about being mindful when we sleep.
Okay,
Meditating before sleeping is something he recommends
that's a good one.
in
Okay.
several instances.
Yeah.
And also when we sleep, there is a practice of not sleeping too comfortably,
Right.
because it can become like that, when we are very much attached to it, then we cannot really let go of it. There's even some basic things like sleeping and eating. If we learn to deal with it in a more flexible way, we can feel more happy.
Well, it's kind of like you're having yourself sleep, and when you meditate, you also rest too. So you probably don't need too much rest now if you have a lot of
Right,
meditation.
right. And the thing is that when we meditate, there is this research that has been done that there's a lot of this sort of frequency which occurs in the brain, the gamma waves and other kind of waves that occur in the brain, that shows that when people meditate, they are actually have a sort of calm awareness, which is very hard to find normally when we normally in our daily life. So this shows that that the rest that we get from meditation is a very deep kind of rest, which is not fine, which you don't have when you sleep. So it's actually better than sleeping in some ways. So some people tell me that I don't have time to meditate. I'm so busy, and then I always say, well, do you have time to sleep? Yeah, I do have time to sleep, of course. Well, if you have time to sleep, you have time to meditate. Because if you are sleeping for 7 hours, for example, okay, somebody's busy, maybe 7 hours, even some people 6 hours. If you're a very busy person, sometimes you don't get enough rest. Well, then at least meditate for half an hour, and then the remaining 6.5 hours will be much deeper. So
Right.
there's never any good reason not to meditate. So that's what I tell them.
So the question is, if meditation is good for our sleep as well, how do we have a good meditation? Because sometimes when we meditate, we quite meeting some obstacle too.
When we are talking about sleeping well, it's really about having a peaceful waking mind as well. If you have a peaceful waking mind, then you have a peaceful sleeping mind.
Right.
They are very much related. When we sleep, we just review our lives. So if we have a peaceful life, if we deal with our life in a peaceful manner, then we also will find that our sleep will improve. So if you have any fears in your life or very unresolved emotions, then those are going to come back when you sleep. So to summarize, in Buddhism, and I already mentioned this before, there are 5 hindrances which occur
Yeah.
when you are meditating, and they will also occur when you sleep. And if we have any of those hindrances in our mind, they might affect our sleep and our dreams. So these 5 hindrances will also make us less happy in general.
Right.
So how can we deal with these? Is there some way we can deal with it, or is this the way we are born? Well, for example, if you have unresolved desires, sensual desires, you really would like to be with somebody, or would really like to have something, all of that creates a lot of suffering in the mind, which might occur, may create fear in our mind and create bad dreams and also bad sleep, or even insomnia, causing you not to sleep at all. So there is a good way to deal with that is by reflecting. Reflecting in a way is a way to teach yourself. The person that is most important to teach in our lives is ourselves when we talk about the spiritual process.
Okay.
So when we are, for example, have many desires that are not resolved, or we miss people, or very unhappy with unresolved wishes in our mind, then we should think that all the things around us and all the people around us will sometimes disappear from this world. We will have to let go of them sooner, if not soon, then later. I mean, they will have to disappear from our lives someday.
Yeah.
Cars and other possessions, they break down, they get damaged, they get stolen. People, they get old and die, and change also. And even if that's not the case, then we will have to leave this world at a certain point. And then we have to let it all behind. And if we do not learn to let go right now, we're going to have to face death with fear.
Right.
So the way we deal with this hindrances is by reflecting, and also by meditating, of course.
Okay.
All of these hindrances become less when we meditate often. Reflection is also a very good thing.
True. Well, that's one thing that I recall when we are having a lot of worries and restlessness that could also making us unable to sleep. Sometimes it also help when we are talking, just like in the story of King Ajatasattu, who has murdered his father, and in the end he resolved by asking for forgiveness from the Buddha as the representative to his father, so he able to let go and finally have a good rest after that.
Right.
This is
That
something.
story is very powerful, and I think that shows how much, if we have things that are unresolved in our lives, and we haven't talked it out with people, and we haven't talked it out with ourselves, we haven't found a way to find to come to find redemption or purity in our lives, then we cannot go on. It will be a lot of suffering in our lives, in our mind. And another thing that I should forgot to mention is that we sometimes have anger in our mind, and in that case, reflection is helpful as well, as I already mentioned. But it's also important that we might learn to practice more loving kindness. So as I said before, when we have more loving kindness in our lives, then it's easier to sleep as well, and we won't have any anger with anyone who is in our lives.
But anyway,
Yeah.
as for our having sleep good rest, but sometimes we do when we sleep we do dream too, So how can we have a good rest and why do we dream
Right.
then?
Yeah. So sometimes we sleep. We are able to fall asleep. We don't have insomnia.
Yeah.
But then when we sleep, we have nightmares. And that can in itself create insomnia because we are afraid to fall asleep.
Right.
So let us just go back to why we have bad dreams or bad sleep, especially the dreams. Sometimes we have nightmares because of a physical cause, our body is not healthy. Then we have to make sure that we take better care of our health. And if we are ill already, then we can meditate to create some more balance in our body or better cope with the illness.
Right.
There is also mental reasons why people have nightmares, and that is because of the hindrances that I mentioned. But even if we are physically and mentally sound and healthy, there may sometimes be some other causes that cause us to have nightmares. Sometimes it's said that they're supernatural or karmic causes that is because of karma, that we did something wrong in the past and it comes back to us, or because some other beings in the world, they want to communicate with us. But that's all going a little bit far to discuss right now. Most of the time our nightmares are just because of physical and mental causes.
Okay.
So when we are dealing with that, then we shouldn't attribute too much meaning to these nightmares. So if we take good care of that, then those nightmares will also be better and disappear altogether.
Since you mentioned about we have a nightmare, then how can we have a good sleep without a nightmare? Then can you tell us?
In summary, there's 3 things we do need to take care of if we want to have a good night's sleep.
Okay.
First of all, our environment. Do we have any plants? Too many plants in our house? Do we have too much light coming in? That may be a cause. Or taking care of your health. As I already mentioned, make sure we are healthy and strong, have exercise every day, have a good meal, eating balanced nutrition. So all of that is important if you want to sleep well. But we should never forget that there's also mental health. And mental health is not just having no illness. Not having any mental illness is not hard for many people, but just having mental strength and mental resilience, we have to do more. So there's a number of things we can do in detail to improve our good night's sleep. First of all, I would like to say that in Buddhism, we always recommend everyone to abstain from alcohol, not to smoke cigarettes, and not to take any drugs.
Right.
That is always a good rule for your moral and also spiritual life, but certainly for a good night's sleep. I mentioned meditation before we sleep. And also loving kindness meditation. Loving kindness meditation, for those who do not know, is when you are repeating a wish in your mind, or repeating a thought in your mind that you wish happiness comes to yourself and other people around you. And you repeat this thought in your mind until it becomes like a habitual thing. It becomes more like a feeling than a thought.
Okay.
And you can spread this feeling outwards. And that is loving kindness meditation. And there's also one other thing that I haven't mentioned yet. If you are a Buddhist or you have some interest in Buddhism, then you can chant a Buddhist text or a text of wisdom before you go to sleep, because this is a sort of a kind of meditation in a way too. We chant and then we review good things. For example, we review the Buddhist teaching when we chant, or we review the qualities of the Buddhist teaching when we chant, and we think about all those good things. And it causes our mind to be more serene, more still. And that is also a very good way to prepare yourself before sleeping. Then there is the one idea that is very much emphasized by our abbot and teacher in Thailand, Lompo Tamachayo, is that we sleep in the sea of merit, what he calls, which means that we think about the good things that we have done to be joyful. Kind of think of it like a sort of blanket that you put around you, a blanket of good deeds.
Okay.
So generally, when we practice meditation every day, we will find that our mind is becoming more still, and that will also improve our night's rest. So when we have more sleep, more meditation every day, our sleep will also improve. We deal better with the hindrances have less effect on our mind. Then we will find that gradually, step by step, we will find that our mind becomes more still, more happy, more peaceful. Even if you have problems in your life, they won't affect you so much. So that's why meditation gives us a lot of freedom, gives us a lot of independence. and also gives us a lot of happiness. So it's important to take care of every day.
Right. Well, it's kind of like I think it's work though because when I try chanting, it helps you also calm your mind, and when you meditate, you are focused easier and go into your I would call your practice of meditation quite easier when you are chanting before you meditate. And as you mentioned,
Right.
it is the little kind of meditation that can help you focus easier and prepare your mind before meditating. But anyway, before we end today, is there the story that you like to give an example?
So in the time of after the Buddha had just passed away into nirvana, and after that his disciples they were planning a meeting, which is known as the first council. And the first council was led by Venerable Mahakassapa. The Venerable Mahakassapa, he had a rule that everyone on the council should be enlightened. So they were going to have an agreement on the council as to what the Buddhist teachings are and how they could be best summarized.
Right.
So when they are talking about that, they were with 499 monks on the guest list, and then one of them, he wasn't confirmed yet, and that person, he had to be there because he was the person who remembered most of the Buddha's teaching. He was very close to the Buddha. He was like the living memory of the Buddha. Yeah. Everything that the Buddha had taught throughout his life, especially from the time when the Venerable Ananda was his attendant, he had memorized and he had remembered. He was like the living encyclopedia with all the Buddhist teaching in it. So they had to have him. They had to have him on the council, and there was some discussion whether he could be on the council because they had a rule that everyone had to be enlightened. But then they just remembered that the Venerable Ananda, he's not enlightened yet. He's close, but he isn't enlightened yet.
Right.
So what should we do? So they told him, well, Venerable Ananda, can you become enlightened? Because we have to have this meeting.
Right.
Now, suppose it was you or me, right? We had a deadline that we have to become enlightened in 2 or 3 days or something like that. Okay. How can you do that? It's very difficult. This is a very major challenge. And also the Buddha himself, he did encourage once that Venerable Ananda would certainly become enlightened in his footsteps just before he passed away. So that was some encouragement for him that he could still remember. And he decided, I have to try. I have to attempt to become enlightened for the benefit of the Buddhist teaching, so that I can be on the meeting and on the council, and we can gather all the Buddhist teachings in one place and in one time. So he decided, this night I will have to become enlightened.
This won't work that way.
He was dedicating himself to meditation all night long. And he was walking as well, walking meditation, sitting meditation, everything he tried. He tried, and then no result yet.
No.
He hadn't attained enlightenment yet. And he was kind of at a point that he was not sure how to proceed, or he thought maybe I'm doing it the wrong way, maybe I just need to have a break for a moment. So it isn't quite clear whether he gave up or whether he just wanted to take a break. But what is clear is that he just was lying down for a moment. And just in the moment when he was about to completely lie down, halfway between sitting and lying down, he attained enlightenment. So traditionally it's said that the Venerable Ananda was the only disciple, the only student of the Buddha that attained enlightenment in none of the standard poses.
Before he go to
in none
bed,
of the standard postures. So there's no record of any other disciple that attained enlightenment halfway between sitting and lying down.
Right.
So the Venerable Ananda attained enlightenment, and that very moment he
I
became
see.
one of the enlightened disciples, one of the arahats
Oh,
and the arahants. And then the next day, the story goes, he came to the
meeting.
council, the first council, and everyone just realized suddenly that he was enlightened.
All right. Well, that's a
So,
good
whatever the
example.
case may be, this story very much shows that we all have to have our process when we are trying to have a breakthrough in meditation.
I see.
Or, in more general terms, if we want to have more peace in our lives, sometimes we have to find the right balance
Yes.
between well being, comfort, relaxation on the one hand, and mindfulness, activity of the mind on the other hand.
Okay. As it is from this story, we see that when we are trying too hard, we may not find the result. However, if we are just keep it in the balance, in relaxation and mindfulness, then we will find easy way for us to focus and find ourselves a good meditation experience. And this is one of the way to help us also finding ourselves a good sleep at night. So everyone, hope you meditate and have a good rest. So that way we can see each other again next time. Thank you very much, Venerable Sander, for helping us solving this problem.
Thank you.
Well, I hope to see you again in the next question. Good questions, good answer.